Hello everyone, welcome back. In this video, let's understand the component life cycle in detail. So the first life cycle method is constructor, and it is invoked during the component or directive creation. And the second one is ng on changes. It is invoked every time when there is a change occurs to the one of the input properties of the component. So the next one is ng on init. It is invoked when the component has been initialized, and it is called only once after the ng on changes, and it is called only once per component creation. So the next one is ng do check. It is invoked when the change detector detects a change in the input properties, and we can add our custom checks as well. And we cannot have ng do check and ng on changes in the same component because both serve the same purpose. So the next one is ng on destroy. Basically, it is called when the component or directive is destroyed from the DOM. So now let's understand each and every lifecycle method in detail with a real-time example to get the good clarity on all these lifecycle methods and when to use them appropriately. So now let's write the real-time code to understand the constructor and ng on init together. Let me start by adding some code changes so it will be easy to understand. Let me just start with a div. Input type text. I need a text box. This is Angular directive. Currently there is nothing in this application. It is plain text box. Okay. And let me just add a button. So let's start with adding a constructor, and let's add console.log from constructor, and let's implement on init. Okay, within this again we'll add a console.log. We'll say from on init. So as a first step, let's look at it. If you see from constructor from on init, so first one constructor is called, then on init is called, but this doesn't make sense. So let's understand with a real-time example, like when we are going to use constructor and on init, and what kind of a logic that we are going to add as part of the constructor and on init. So for that I'm writing this code. Okay, let's add a button and click event get product details by id. It is a function, and I'm going to pass this product id. Since it is annotated with ng model, it will automatically tied up to this particular property, and it will have the value associated. Okay, let me just paste it here. Okay, let's see, it is a string. Let's see how it is looking. Let's see how this is looking on the UI. Okay, we have a text box and a product button. Let me just align them to look better. Let me set the same thing here also. Okay, and the styles, let's, yeah, we have a styles already. Okay, now it is centered. Okay, now let's let's add another component. So I'm giving a real-time example when we use, so for that reason I'm writing this code. I'm just creating a child component. Okay, I'll just go to the router, add a path to child, because the product ID, and component would be I want to create a new component, ng generate component product. So now we have a product class and a product component. I'll go to the routing, I'll add a routing path product. I'll pass the product ID and the component name is product component. Okay, we have a route to product component right now. What I'll do is, when I click this button, I want to route, I need router module, this dot router dot navigate to product page, and I am passing this product ID. Okay, product URL, product ID I'm passing. Now it will match the routing, this one, and when we go to this particular component, now let's focus. This is where now you can see the real-time scenario, what we usually do in the constructor in real time. Okay, within the constructor, see right now we have a product, we are calling this particular product URL, and we are passing the product ID. Okay, if you could look at the URL, product and product ID. Now I want to get hold of this product ID and make the API call to get the product details. For that scenario, now I need to get hold of the activated route. Okay, once I get the activated route, to get hold of the route URL, okay, what I need to do is I need to call this dot route. Let's say route. It's not a router. Route dot so parameters dot subscribe, so that I can get the parameters, and once I get the parameters, I'll just add a product ID as empty, and now this dot product ID equal to params of product ID, so that I can get hold of the product ID. Okay, so in this type of scenario, to get hold of the parameter in the browser, okay, now let's look at when I click this one, I have a number one, right? To get hold of this one in the product component, I'm writing the logic in the constructor, because I need this. As soon as I go to this particular component, I need this right away. Why I need this is because after this, what I'll do is, now let's look at the ng on init and why I need that. Okay, now implements on init. Now ng on init. Within this ng on init, okay, before we go there, okay, let me just create a service called product. Okay, now what I'll do is I'll go to product service. Within this product service, I need HTTP client. Okay, I'll add a method get product details, and I will get the product ID as a string parameter, and I'll return this dot http dot get of plus the product ID. So I'm using dummy JSON website to get the data. So I'm using this dummy API. Okay, I'll pass the product ID and get the data. Okay, now I have a service method within the product. What I'll do is, along with this, I'll inject product service I got. Now what I'll do is this dot product service dot get details of this dot product ID, because this product ID, whatever is assigned to this, it will come here. Dot subscribe. When I subscribe, I get the data. Once I get the data, I'll use that data and assign it to some local variable, which is, I'll call it as a product details. Okay, product details of any. Okay, now here this dot product details equals to this are product details equals to, I'll get data. So product details will have data. Okay. And if you understand this, within this page, I want to first get hold of the parameter value. Okay, then I need to make the for that I used constructor to get hold of the parameter value. Okay, once I got the parameter, now in the ng on in it, I am making the API call to get the product data. Once I get the product details, I wanted to display these details in the product HTML. Okay, in product HTML, let's add a div and we'll align it to center. Div styles. Let me just copy the same div styles from here to products CSS. Okay, so that it will center line. Now I have this. Okay, what I'll do is I'll use Angular 17 version of if okay, I'll say toggle product details, else no product details available to view. Okay, initially on the page load I'll set this as false until we make the API call and get the details. Okay, here we already got the data, so now I'll set this as true once I have the data ready, so that it will enable that to display. Okay, now within here, since I have if I have product details, that's when I wanted to display the data. Okay, so product details object is empty. Okay, now I have product. Okay, now I'll display the product details. Okay, product ID, product details dot ID, and product title, product details dot title, this is small title, and product price. I'm getting these fields based on the dummy JSON API. If you see the price, description and title, based on that I'm writing the code. So this is price. We are getting 3 values out of it. Now let's remove this product works. Now let's test this. So this is the main page. Okay, I need to Now when I search for one, now I got the product details. How this is working, okay? In the product component, I'm using this getting hold of this parameter. Okay, how I am getting hold of that parameter? Within this constructor of the product component, I'm getting hold of the route, current activated route, okay, which is this. Current activated route is this, okay. From this route, I'm getting the parameters. From this activated route, there is only one parameter. How this is recognizing this as a parameter is because I added like this. So this is the parameter, okay, and from that parameter, so I'm getting hold of the parameter based on the product parameter name. If you see, this is a parameter name, it should match, otherwise it won't get hold of it. I'm assigning it to a product ID. Now that I have product ID, okay, so anything that you are going to add within this particular place, within the constructor, that should not display anything in the view, which is HTML, okay. You can add anything that is not used to display in the UI when the component is created, because if you want to display something on the UI, okay, currently product details we are displaying, right? If you see product details, we are displaying product details, okay. If there is anything that you want to display on the page, okay, that shouldn't be part of the constructor, because when we call the constructor, the product component itself is creating, so it is not completely created. So if the product component itself is creating, that time you cannot pass any data to the UI HTML file, okay, it won't work. For that reason, this product ID, I'm not passing it to the UI, I'm just getting hold of the parameter, that's all. I'm not doing displaying anything. So for that reason, I kept this logic in the constructor. Now that you should put the logic that won't display anything in the HTML, okay, and just perform some logic and get hold of some data and keep it in the TypeScript itself. That type of logic you should put within the constructor. Once the constructor is done, okay, my component is created, okay. Because of that reason, on ng on in it, now I am calling the API call, okay, and getting the data, because this data is displayed on the page, okay. So when the component itself is not created, you cannot set this type of view related content in the constructor, okay. And anything that you want to display, it shouldn't be part of the constructor, it should be on in it, on in it, not inside constructor. This is the major difference. In real-time project, this is how we use constructor versus ng on in it. I hope you understood. If you have any questions regarding these two, comment. I'll share the exact details.